Hey Dan, thanks so much for joining the show today.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, for sure. And to get started, can we just talk a little bit about your journey in design?
Sure. Gosh, it's been a while, but the short version is I graduated from college 1994, and that is right around the time that the web was sort of getting big. I found my first job out of college was as kind of a jack of all trades web guy. I was doing HTML, I was doing Perl scripting, I was just doing everything for a book publishing company. Long story short, when I moved to the DC area, I got a job in consulting, and that's really where I've sat ever since. I decided to focus more on user experience when I moved up here. Eventually, after about 10 years of work, I started a firm with Nathan Curtis called Eight Shapes. Eight Shapes started in 2000. We ran it for 18 years together, and then just last year we decided to close Eight Shapes, and I started my own firm called Curious Squid, and that's how I got here.
Love it, love it. And let's hop into what you one of the other fun things you're up to now, which is a podcast of your own on, correct me if I'm wrong, disinformation, which not only in the news, but also just in the era of AI and even this relates to UX as well. Tell us a little bit about that, from like a UX lens as well.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. It sort of started, the germ of the idea started actually several years ago. In 2018, I released a deck of cards called the IA Lenses. And that deck of cards was really sort of everything that I thought about in terms of information architecture, like the different kinds of questions that I would ask myself as I was thinking about an information architecture that I was working on. And with the election last year, with the proliferation of even more and more misinformation, I was like, I need to update these cards, or I need to come up with a new set of cards, specifically on how to deal with disinformation. What occurred to me is that disinformation is no longer just something that happens over there. It's making its way into every
Yeah.
information space. I mean, it's literally everywhere. You can't look at anything with content and trust the information that's there anymore. So because of that, like sort of like mini epiphany that I had that disinformation was now everywhere, I also realized that we designers, I think, have a responsibility to create information spaces that are more resilient
Yeah.
against misinformation. It's really easy to say, well, it's not our responsibility. The people who are creating the misinformation, they're the ones who should be responsible. Well, and then there's the people who are spreading it because they see something and then they share it. But how is that my responsibility as a designer? Well, we're creating the spaces that permit misinformation and that encourage people to share misinformation. Because of that, I was like, what can I do? What's one small thing I can do? I'm an information architect. I love thinking about how to craft information spaces to accomplish different things. But I knew I had a lot to learn about disinformation and misinformation. As information architects, we think a lot about information, but we always have this assumption that the information we're dealing with is
Yeah.
largely accurate or free from any kind of agenda or appropriate for the space that it's in. And I was like, well, since I want to kind of go on this learning journey, let me share that journey as I do it. And I pitched this idea of a podcast to my colleague Rachel, and she liked it. I liked the idea a lot, to the extent that we decided that she and I would do this together. So we started in March of this year. We've got I just dropped episode number 6 with a disinformation expert. She's an academic at Cornell, and it's been incredibly educational. But part of the thing that Rachel and I do is after we talk to experts, we come up with some new lenses, some new ways of thinking about information spaces that we can apply to our own practice.
Nice. I love that. That sounds very interesting. Definitely going to check that out. Let's go into something you were talking about there, information architecture. I feel like that word is forgotten in the era and speed and pace of product life cycles today. And I'll just do it with AI, do it quickly. How should teams revisit that and make sure that their product or website is actually up to IA standards?
Yeah, it's a great question. Information architecture is the practice of designing structures for information to live in, right? And we design structures all the time when we're designing a product. We're designing kind of how we collect information from people. We're designing how we display information to people. We're designing how information should be connected to each other. All of the digital products that we're working on are made of information. But I think you're absolutely right. For many years, information architecture has been sort of pushed to the side. I
Yeah.
have many theories as to why that is, but regardless of why, we're here now, and what I'm sensing is a greater need for us to for designers to pay attention to information architecture. Let me say that differently. I'm sensing a greater interest in information architecture because a lot of people are dealing with products that have sort of outgrown their structures. They want to add features. They've been dealing with the same UI for 10, 15 years, and now the UI doesn't kind of handle all the new things that they need to add, or the new use cases, or the new scenarios. All of those are structural problems. All of those reflect an inadequacy in the structure. It's like if you had a residential apartment that you suddenly wanted to turn into a retail space, the configuration of the apartment doesn't align with the needs of a retail space. So those are structural questions, and a lot of people don't have information architecture or information architects on their teams. And
Yeah.
I'm finding that a lot of product designers, it's very uneven. Some of them bring kind of that systems thinking sensibility to their work, and some of them do not. That's not a problem. It just means that that capability is missing from those teams.
Yeah, totally agree. And then in the AI space, I feel like it's skipped, and just in a lot of the applications I've used, like it's not even a consideration. What are you seeing with regards to AI and IA?
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated. One of the more intriguing things about artificial intelligence is that it requires a lot more information architecture, not just in the UI, but in how content is tagged and prepared. A lot of that is sort of structural categorization, classification concerns. In the presentation of that information, we're talking about a different kind of information than a lot of the standard apps that we've used for a long time. The outputs from artificial intelligence, at least from a lot of the ones that are popular today, are probabilistic, right? It means we don't really know what the AI is going to generate, and that creates a whole new set of challenges around how do we present and encapsulate that information in a way that's meaningful and helpful for people. So I think part of the renewed interest in information architecture comes from these two angles that AI adds. One is, how do we make sure the information that goes into the AI, the information that serves as training data, is structured and tagged in a way that's meaningful? And
Yeah,
on the flip side, how's the information that comes out of the other side of it structured in such a way to make it meaningful and useful for the people consuming it?
love that. You wrote an article on sort of like a leadership lens on like how you show up to present and work in UX. Can you tell us a little bit about that and kind of your train of thought?
Yeah. I have the good fortune, I guess, of talking to a lot of people about their work. I guess like you, um, I and I really enjoy it. I really enjoy sort of hearing what people are up to. I like talking to mid-career folks because these are folks who are sort of at an inflection point in their jobs, right? They've been doing, IC work for a long time, and they're sort of poised to take on more of a leadership role. So they are doing a lot more reflection of how they show up. I was talking to someone earlier this week, or I guess last week now. I've talked to a couple of people about this idea that we all have goals. We all have like career goals, presumably, like I want to grow my company, or I want to be able to do these kinds of things, or I want to work on a project that does this, or I want to ship a project. Like all of those are goals, but they don't really talk about day to day. What are you doing? How do you show up? How do you behave in a meeting? How do you prepare your work so someone else can make use of it? How do you engage with stakeholders? We all have kind of a style or an approach. And the way this person that I was talking to framed it is they really admired how other people show up for the work, whether that's confidence or open mindedness or creativity or all of these different values, I guess, or virtues that we assign to designers. And it really got me thinking about, how do I show up? What makes it interesting and fun, I think, to work with me specifically, is because how I show up to do the work.
Right.
And it gave me just a new avenue, a new way of kind of reflecting on my practice and what does it mean to be a designer, not just in terms of the goals that I have, but in terms of my, I call it in the article, I call it a posture. What is my posture when I come to these conversations?
Yeah, I love that. Well, Dan, thank you so much for sharing these insights today.